All right, strap yourselves in for this one, folks, because today's deep dive, well, uh, it takes us into some pretty dark waters.
Dark waters is an appropriate analogy, I'd say.
You guys have given us a whole stack of sources about how fast Russian military technology is advancing, and well, let's just say it's enough to make you want to, start stocking that doomsday bunker.
It's certainly a development we need to pay close attention to, especially given, well, the current global situation.
Exactly, exactly. And we're not talking about like, a little software upgrade on some old tech here. We're talking about potentially like rewriting the rules of war kind of stuff. New weapon systems, new strategies, and honestly, the whole landscape of warfare could be about to change.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're here to figure out today. What's the real deal? What's just hype? And maybe most importantly, what does all of this mean for all of us? For global security.
Right, right. We can dive into all the scary technical details and the different weapon systems, but at the end of the day, it's about the consequences, right? Understanding the potential consequences and the risks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's start with the big one, I guess. Hypersonic missiles. I mean, honestly, I hear this term all the time now, but I'm still a little fuzzy on what exactly makes them so different from your average everyday missile.
Okay, well, think of it this way. Imagine you've got your classic ballistic missile, right? Follows a predictable path, makes it theoretically easier to intercept.
Yeah, yeah.
But these hypersonic missiles, well, they're like the Ferraris of the missile world. They're screaming along at speeds faster than Mach 5. That's 5 times the speed of sound. And the thing is, they can maneuver while they're doing that. That combo, that speed and agility, makes them incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to stop with our current technology.
So it's not just about hitting a target faster. It's about like dodging and weaving around whatever we try to throw at them, huh?
Precisely. And well, that brings up a whole other set of questions about payloads and what these missiles could be carrying.
Okay, yeah, that's a thought. I don't even want to go down that road right now. But okay, so we've established these things are fast and they're slippery. But I was reading that there are like different types of hypersonic missiles. Something about uh, glide vehicles and cruise missiles. Can you break that down for us? What's the difference?
Yeah, so you've got your two main types, hypersonic glide vehicles, or HGVs, and then hypersonic cruise missiles, HCMs. HGVs, like the Avangard system that Russia has, they get launched up into the upper atmosphere by a ballistic missile,
Uh-huh.
and then they glide down to the target, maneuvering the whole way.
So they're using the atmosphere like a slip and slide, basically, dodging and weaving through the air to make it impossible to shoot them down.
Exactly. Now, HCMs, those are they're different. They use what's called a scramjet engine that lets them keep up that hypersonic speed throughout the whole flight.
Yeah.
Think of it like your classic cruise missile, but way, way faster.
Okay, so scramjets, I've heard of them, but honestly, that's about as far as it goes. It sounds like some seriously high tech stuff, but there's still some kinks to work out, right? Some limitations.
Yeah, there are. Scramjets are incredible, but they're not perfect, right?
Huh?
They need those booster rockets to get up to speed for the scramjet to kick in. And their range, well, it could be limited, especially at lower altitudes where the air is thicker.
So it's not like they can just take off from anywhere and go zipping across continents at Mach 10.
No, not quite. But I think the fact that these weapons even exist is pretty concerning, don't you think? I mean, how do you even begin to counter something that can hit pretty much anywhere so fast with so little warning?
It's a tough one, yeah. It's like trying to stop a bullet with a net. Not a great feeling. So we've got these hypersonic missiles, the Ferraris, you said. What other high-tech toys are hiding in Russia's arsenal these days?
Well, there's one that sounds, honestly, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right.
But it's all too real, unfortunately. It's called the Poseidon nuclear-powered drone.
Hold on. Did you say nuclear powered?
I did. Imagine a drone the size of a school bus running on a nuclear reactor, just lurking down there in the ocean depths with with a nuclear warhead. That's the Poseidon.
Okay. Yeah, that's not just unsettling. That's straight up nightmare fuel.
Hmm.
What's the thinking behind a weapon like that? I mean, it seems like overkill to the nth degree.
And that's precisely what makes it so dangerous. It's what we call strategic ambiguity. Just the fact that it exists raises all sorts of questions. Is it Is it a deterrent? Is it a first strike weapon? Is it meant for coastal cities, naval bases? Nobody really knows. And that lack of clarity, well, it creates a whole lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, and that can really escalate tensions quickly.
So it's almost like a psychological weapon as much
Right.
as a physical one,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Just sowing fear and doubt.
Exactly. That psychological impact, it can be just as destabilizing as the weapon itself. It creates this climate of mistrust. Everyone's on edge. Everyone's perceiving more risk than maybe there actually is, and that can lead to miscalculations, to maybe even accidental escalation.
So we've got these hypersonic missiles that are impossible to stop. We've got this underwater nuclear drone that's basically a giant question mark swimming around with a warhead. Anything else we should be losing sleep over?
Well, there's the S-500. It's an air defense system, and it's supposed to be Russia's answer to these hypersonic threats. It's a sophisticated piece of technology, can track and engage multiple targets, super high altitudes, all that. Basically, it's their attempt to build a shield against the very weapons they're developing.
So they're making the spear and the shield,
Hmm.
both pushing the limits of what's even possible. It's a pretty intense arms race they've got going over there.
It's a sign of the times, I'd say. A shift away from, that relative stability we had after the Cold War. Things are getting more multipolar, more players on the board, tensions are rising, and everyone's flexing their military muscles again.
Yeah, it feels like the rules of the game are changing right in front of us.
Yeah.
And speaking of changing the game, there's one name that keeps popping up in these sources that's no stranger to shaking things up, and that's Donald Trump.
Ah, yes. His return to the political scene definitely throws another wrench in the works. Things were complicated enough as it was.
He's back, and he's making some bold claims about the war in Ukraine, promising to end it quickly, but then also threatening Russia with more sanctions if they don't play ball. I mean, talk about mixed messages, right?
His foreign policy style has always been, well, it's always been a bit of a mix. Unpredictable, transactional. He's not afraid to apply pressure, and he definitely doesn't shy away from speaking his mind, even if it even ruffles some feathers.
And that's what makes all of this so unpredictable right now. I mean, how will Russia react to all this? And what about the rest of the world? How are they looking at the potential return of, well, let's just say a figure who's known for making waves?
Everyone's watching, that's for sure. His actions, what he says, the policies he might put in place, they could all have a huge impact on how this conflict plays out. I mean, he's shown in the past that he's willing to challenge those old alliances, those traditional partnerships, and he's not afraid to go toe to toe with adversaries.
So we've got this whole new generation of Russian weapons
Yeah.
that are basically changing the face of warfare.
Mhm.
We've got this war raging in Europe that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, and we've got the return of let's say a very unpredictable player on the world stage. It's a lot to wrap your head around, honestly.
It is. It's complicated, that's for sure. And if we want to navigate this whole new era of geopolitical uncertainty, we really need to understand how all of these pieces fit together.
Yeah. That's a lot to think about. We've covered a lot of ground here, from those hypersonic missiles to those underwater drones, and now the return of a familiar face on the world stage. I imagine our listener has a lot to process right now. We'll be right back after a short break to continue our deep dive.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It really does feel like, in some ways, we're right back in the Cold War, doesn't it? All this showing off military might, this tension bubbling under the surface between these superpowers. You're right on the money there. It's like we're watching this high stakes chess match, right? And every move, it feels like every move could make things way worse. So where do we go from here? Are we headed straight for another Cold War, or is this something totally different?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think anyone really has a clear answer right now. I mean, there are definitely some similarities to the Cold War, right? You've got the arms race, you've got that ideological divide, and those proxy wars. But the world's a different place now, isn't it? I mean, we're so much more interconnected, globalized economies, instant communication, and a whole bunch of new players on the global stage.
Right, right. It's not just the U.S. and Russia anymore calling all the shots. You've got China's rising. You've got non-state actors like terrorist groups and stuff,
Yeah.
and then you got technology, right? And that doesn't really care about borders, does it?
Got it. So we can learn from the past, sure, but we can't just pull out the old Cold War playbook and expect it to work. The world's a lot messier now, a lot more unpredictable, and that makes predicting the future even harder.
So no easy answers then. But if I'm following you, it sounds like it's not just about these new weapon systems. It's about a bigger shift in who's got the power in the world, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that has consequences way beyond just the military stuff.
Exactly. These military developments, they're really just a symptom of a much deeper change happening. Like the whole geopolitical landscape is shifting.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect everything. Trade, the economy, international relations, and yeah, even the possibility of conflict in all those hotspots around the world.
So for our listener who's been following all of this pretty closely, what are the big takeaways here? What should they be watching out for as all this plays out?
I think one of the most important things to remember is that technology is just one piece of the puzzle, right? It's easy to get caught up in the specs and the bells and whistles of these new weapons. But at the end of the day, it's people making decisions. That's what's going to decide how this all goes down.
So it's not the weapons themselves that are dangerous. It's how they're used,
Yeah.
and that comes down to the people in charge and the choices they make.
That's right. And we have to be careful about this idea that technology is going to decide everything. Like technology just takes over and that's it. It's not like that. Technology, it creates possibilities, sure, but it's still up to us to all of us as a society to decide how we use it, for good or for bad.
So don't just focus on the shiny new weapons, right?
Yeah.
Pay attention to the politics, the diplomacy, and the people who are making the decisions. That's where the real story is.
Absolutely. And I'd add that we should be watching how the other big players react, not just Russia, and the US China's role in all of this is getting bigger and bigger. And what they do or don't do could really shake things up on a global scale.
It's like a multi-dimensional chess match, right?
Right.
Everyone's trying to figure out what the other guy's going to do. Everyone's trying to protect their own interests, and it's all happening on this massive global stage. And the consequences, well, they're real for all of us.
Yeah. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all. But it's precisely because it's so complicated that we have to stay informed. We have to talk about it and try to make sense of this crazy new world we're living in.
Okay, so let's bring it back to our listener for a second. Why should they care about all this?
Mm-hmm.
How does it affect their everyday life? It can feel pretty abstract sometimes, right? Like it's all happening, a world away.
I get that. But the truth is, all this geopolitical stuff, it has a way of rippling out. It touches every part of our lives, even if we don't see it right away. Like the war in Ukraine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's already messed with energy prices, food security, global supply chains. And that's hitting people's wallets everywhere.
You're right. We might not be seeing, tanks rolling down Main Street, but we're definitely feeling the pinch, right? The economic pinch, and the social consequences.
Yeah.
And with the possibility of things getting worse, with these new weapons in the mix, well, the stakes just keep getting higher and higher.
The world's just getting more and more connected. So what happens over there, it affects us over here, whether it's through, trade or migration, climate change, or, in this case, the threat of war.
So staying informed, it's not just about, being a news junkie or keeping up with the latest headlines. It's about understanding the forces that are shaping our world, maybe even shaping our future.
It's about being an engaged citizen, knowing what's going on and being able to think critically about it all, so you can navigate this increasingly complex and uncertain world.
Okay, so we've looked at the tech, right? The hypersonic missiles, the underwater drones, the fancy new defense systems. We've talked about the bigger picture, the power shifts, the ghosts of the past coming back to haunt us. But I think it's time we tackle the big one. The question that's been hanging over this whole conversation. What does all this mean for the future of war? What's war even going to look like in a few years?
Yeah, that's the question everyone's asking. And honestly, it's got military strategists and all those defense analysts scratching their heads. I mean, we're in uncharted territory here, right?
Oh,
Hypersonic weapons, AI, autonomous systems, cyber warfare. It's all changing the battlefield, right?
right.
It's all blurring the lines uh, between conventional war and the other stuff.
So we're moving away from from those classic images of war, the battlefields, the front lines, the clear difference between who's fighting and who's not. It's getting it's getting messier, less predictable, and maybe even more dangerous.
That's a great point. Those old rules, they're going out the window. And even the idea of of winning a war, it's getting harder to define. I mean, in a world where you can cripple a country with a cyber attack, where drones can take out whoever they want, and hypersonic missiles can hit anywhere, anytime. What does winning even mean anymore?
It's a question I don't think anyone has a good answer to yet,
Yeah.
but it's a question we got to be asking, right?
Yeah,
As
yeah.
a society, while we're trying to figure out what all this new technology means and what this new era of competition is all about.
We need to have a serious conversation about all of it, about what war even means in this new context, about how easy it could be for things to spiral out of control, and about how important it is for countries to work together to stop something truly catastrophic from happening. We can't just ignore it and hope it goes away.
We've talked about things escalating,
Hmm.
about a new Cold War, about a future where conflict is just more common, more unpredictable. But is there anything to be hopeful about? Is there any chance that all this new tech could actually lead to more stability, more peace?
Well, it's always tricky to make predictions, right? But some people think that these new weapons, even though they might be, destabilizing in the short term, they could lead to a new kind of deterrence. Not deterrence based on, hitting back if someone attacks you, but deterrence based on making it impossible for any attack to succeed in the first place.
So the idea is that if both sides know that any attack is just going to be met with overwhelming force, that they're not going to gain anything from it, then they're less likely to start something in the first place.
Exactly. It's a bit of a paradox, I know, but the thinking is that the sheer destructive power of these new weapons, it could actually prevent them from being used.
Kind of like that whole mutually assured destruction thing from the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
But on a whole other level. But wouldn't that require a level of trust and communication between enemies that seems kind of impossible right now?
It would definitely require a big change in, how countries deal with each other, a move away from that I win you lose mentality that seems to be everywhere these days. But I wouldn't say it's impossible.
So it all comes back to it comes back to us, the choices we make, the political will to actually do something, the willingness to sit down and talk, to find some common ground, even when we disagree on almost everything. It's a tough challenge, but it's a challenge we have to face. We want to avoid a future where it's just constant conflict and things just keep getting more and more dangerous.
It's a challenge that needs all of our attention, our creativity, and our collective wisdom.
Right. So we've explored all the twists and turns of this new arms race, the geopolitical game of chess, the potential for things to either go really bad or maybe find a way to cooperate. It's a lot to take in, to be honest. But before we wrap up, I want to turn it over to our listener for a minute. What are your big takeaways from all of this? Which of these weapon systems is the one that keeps you up at night? And what questions do you have? What questions are still bouncing around in your head?
We want to hear from you. We'll be right back after a short break to continue this deep dive and offer some final thoughts. We've stirred up a lot of thoughts in this deep dive, haven't we? It's a lot to consider.
Yeah, I bet our listeners got a whole notebook full of questions right now.
Yeah.
What are your big takeaways from all this? Which of these weapon systems is the one that really has you worried, and what questions are you still wrestling with?
It's important to remember that this whole deep dive, it's built just for you, based on the sources you gave us. So your perspective is what matters here.
We've been talking about hypersonic missiles that seem like they're straight out of science fiction. We've got that nuclear-powered drone
Yeah.
still lurking down there in the ocean, and then you throw in the return of a political wild card. It's enough to make anyone a little nervous about the future, right?
It is. It is. And there are no no easy answers, are there? But understanding how complicated it all is, understanding the risks and all the different all the different points of view, well, that's a good place to start.
And don't forget, we've got some extra resources linked in the show notes, so you can keep digging into all of this.
Yeah, it's a fast-moving target, right?
Yeah.
So stay curious, stay informed.
We've only just scratched the surface here, but hopefully this deep dive has given you a better sense of what's going on, what might happen, and the questions we all need to be asking ourselves as we try to make sense of this new world.
We've explored the technology, the politics, the ethical dilemmas, but in the end, it always comes back to us, doesn't it? The choices we make as individuals, as nations. That's what shapes history.
In this age of hypersonic weapons and AI running the show, what does it even mean to win a war? Is that even the right way to think about it anymore, or are we headed towards something completely different?
These are the questions we need to be grappling with.
The world's changing fast, and the stakes are they're higher than ever before. We need to be informed, we need to be engaged, and we need to be ready to face whatever's coming next. And that's what we try to do here on the deep dive. We take your sources, your questions, your curiosity, and we dive in together. We try to connect the dots and make sense of it all.
So join us next time for another deep dive. Until then, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and keep on deep diving.
And don't forget, your perspective matters. Let us know what you thought of this episode. What were your big takeaways? What questions are still on your mind?
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time on the deep dive.